Our story begins inside of the senatorial apartment of Padme Amidala on Coruscant. As she slept in the nearby bedroom, Jedi Master Obi Wan Kenobi and his Padawan learner Anakin Skywalker were awake outside, monitoring any sort of disturbance. Throughout the galaxy, Coruscant, and around Padme Amidala, the web of the Separatists and the Sith was closing in on Padme. She was perhaps the most outspoken senator when it comes to fighting against the Military Creation Act, and both Sidious and Dooku knew they could not just sit back and let her gather enough votes to shoot down the potential army. They wanted her dead so she could not gather a vote against this bill, but also so it would appear the CIS are targeting high-value Republic individuals, leading to an escalation of war and a quicker vote to create the military. Of course, the Sith already had a Republic army ready. Kamino has been in the works for around a decade, and now they just need an excuse to launch the clone army into the galaxy. But in this apartment, Skywalker and Kenobi knew none of that. All they knew was that Padme was in danger, and they were here to protect her. But even though this was the mission Anakin always dreamed of, something was bothering him. He stood out on a balcony overlooking the city. He remembered his nightmares. He saw his mother with a loving family on Tatooine. It was the life he'd always dreamt for her. She was happy. The area was filled with laughter and joy, but every time, the vision would twist, and Anakin would watch as all of the people would slow down, screams would echo out, blood would cover the sand. Anakin would run to his mother, and she looked at him like he'd failed her. Anakin always reached out, and she always shattered, dying as Anakin would jolt awake. So, Anakin hadn't slept in a long while, and Obi-Wan could tell something was wrong. He wasn't sure how to approach this situation. He wasn't like Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan truly lived by what the Jedi Council taught, while Qui-Gon would listen to the will of the Force and question authority. Obi-Wan knew what Qui-Gon would do, and as the galaxy shifted ever more towards war, Obi-Wan had to admit to himself that he had doubts about the Jedi Council's way of handling things. As Anakin's training progressed, he was coming more and more into his real personality. He was arrogant, yes, but also kind-hearted. He wanted more than anything to have that trust or attachment that bordered on the line of being against the Jedi Code. Anakin needed a father, and Obi-Wan knew deep down he could never truly be that. Qui-Gon was meant to be that, but as Obi-Wan heard Anakin talk about his nightmares about his mother, Obi-Wan wondered if perhaps what was best for Anakin was the opposite of what he would typically do. Anakin told Obi-Wan that he isn't sure why he keeps dreaming about her, and Obi-Wan knew that he should say that dreams pass in time, that letting go of all attachment will in turn allow Anakin to let go of these dreams. But to Anakin, these would be just words. They'd mean nothing when action could be taken. So today, Obi-Wan took a leap of faith for his Padawan. He told Anakin he has an idea to help him settle these dreams. Anakin looked on with shock that Obi-Wan was actually taking him seriously, and Obi-Wan told Anakin that he is more than ready for a solo mission, and protecting Senator Amidala can be that solo mission. Anakin asked Obi-Wan what he will do, and Obi-Wan said he will travel alone to Tatooine. He will check in on Anakin's mother. Anakin's expression quickly shifted to confusion, so Obi-Wan told Anakin that he cannot be allowed to go and see her. The Council would forbid it. But if Obi-Wan goes, well, he has no attachment to Shmi. It would be just a mission where a Jedi helps a person in potential danger. Anakin allowed himself a smile, telling his master he's not usually one to bend the rules like this, and Obi-Wan laughed as he told Anakin that being around him has influenced him more than Anakin knows. He told Anakin that he will go now, as he can tell these dreams have been wearing on Anakin's mind. He needs Anakin's full focus on this mission. Anakin thanked his master, and their connection never felt deeper than in this moment. Obi-Wan left, and Anakin felt peace, and then he felt a disturbance from Padme's room. So without hesitation, Anakin would burst through the doors, ignite his lightsaber, and cut down the two bugs crawling up on Padme. Anakin looked over to the window, but it was too late. The droid that unleashed the bugs flew away, so Anakin turned to R2, and he told R2 to follow it. Anakin cut through the window, and R2 took off, flying through the air, locked onto the droid, flying through the traffic. Meanwhile, Anakin made sure Padme was alright before taking off and finding a speeder. R2 was able to contact Anakin with his location, and Anakin took off after the two droids. After a long, weaving flight through Coruscant, Anakin could see where the recon droid seemed to be headed. There was a figure standing with a sniper rifle and a speeder on a balcony, so Anakin veered off before he was spotted, taking an alternate route to get to her. On the balcony, bounty hunter Sam Wessel looked through the binoculars to see her droid flying back to her, but behind it was an R2 unit keeping up with its rockets. Zam picked up her sniper, aimed right for the R2 droid, but right before she could pull the trigger, a speeder flew right by her. Anakin jumped out, cutting through the rifle, kicking Zam to the ground. Anakin pointed his saber at her, demanding to know who hired her. But before she could even answer, a poison dart was shot into her neck, and she would die here. Anakin watched another bounty hunter fly away. He then removed the dart, studying it, before headed back to Padme's apartment to make sure that she was safe. Meanwhile, during all of this, Obi Wan had gone against all of his better judgment, jumping to hyperspace for Tatooine. He knew this was wrong, and if Anakin or Padme got into any danger, or any trouble at all, then he would be held responsible. It was just a feeling in his mind, something telling him that he has to start approaching his training of Anakin differently. And so he flew alone with just his own thoughts, until he arrived at the sandy planet. It was just as hot and miserable as he remembered from the time he and Qui-Gon found Anakin here. And as Obi-Wan moved through the towns, he told himself this was the last planet he would ever want to live on. Eventually, he would trace a trail from Watto out to the moisture farms where the Lars family was living, and he would quickly find out the truth. Shmi Skywalker was captured and taken away by Tusken Raiders, and Obi-Wan knew it was now his responsibility to get her back. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, the report of Padme's near assassination was spreading quickly. Anakin had to report it to the Council, and when the Council asked about Obi-Wan, Anakin lied, saying he was following a lead on the bounty hunter. This was accepted, and soon Anakin would find himself alone with Chancellor Palpatine. So, Anakin pulled out the dart that killed the bounty hunter, and he told Palpatine that none of the Jedi research droids could figure out where the dart came from. Palpatine took a closer look at the dart, telling Anakin that he spent many of his younger years studying the symbols of other planets and cultures, and he's seen these symbols only once before. Palpatine told Anakin that this dart belongs to the Kaminoans, a group of cloners, and he gave Anakin the coordinates to the planet. So Anakin, without consulting anyone, would take off to Kamino, determined to find Padme's would-be assassin. But first, Palpatine would ask Anakin about Obi-Wan, where has he gone? And Anakin, trusting Palpatine as much as ever, would tell Palpatine where Obi-Wan has gone, revealing that he's been having nightmares about his mother. So, when Anakin was gone, Palpatine knew something had to be done. Obi-Wan could not be allowed to discover the truth about what has been done to Anakin's mother. Back on Tatooine, Obi-Wan continued through the night, going from Jawas to moisture farmers to barely visible footprints to the tracks of a pack of banthas, until finally he found it. A Tusken camp on the edge of a tall hill. Obi-Wan quietly infiltrated the camp, feeling in the Force for someone in pain, someone suffering, and soon he was able to sneak into a tent where Shmi Skywalker was tied up, bruised and bloodied. But she was not yet at the edge of death. She looked to be a few days worth of suffering from dying, and Obi-Wan took a moment to be glad that he came to find her. Anakin's nightmares proved to be right. Shmi was in danger, and had he or Anakin waited any longer to come out here, she may not have survived. So, Obi-Wan freed her. But before they could leave, Obi-Wan realized none of this made any sense. What reason would the Tuskens have for capturing Shmi like this? The Tuskens were a nomadic people, constantly moving their camp around, and Shmi was captured about a month ago, kept alive for seemingly no real reason. This would require more water, food, and effort to keep her alive like this. So Obi-Wan decided to do what he does best: negotiate, simply talk, find out the truth. But on the other side of the Tusken camp, one of the newer members of the group was hiding in his hut, taking a message from across the galaxy. Darth Sidious was talking with Sharad Het, former Jedi, who recently returned to his homeworld of Tatooine after speaking with Chancellor Palpatine. The Chancellor told the Tusken Jedi that the Hutt clan was planning to move against the Tuskens, wipe them out for good. But Palpatine said he can ensure this does not happen, on one simple condition. Sharad Het was told to capture Shmi Skywalker, keep her alive, but torment her. The reasoning for this was that it would give Anakin nightmares, and ultimately, it was supposed to bring Anakin to her as she died. But instead, it was the much more reasonable and patient Obi-Wan Kenobi. So today, Palpatine ordered Sharad Het to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi, leave no trace of him, or else the Hutts will have free reign on the Tusken land. Had Anakin come here, Palpatine was going to find a way to get Het out of there before Anakin arrived, and have Het killed so Anakin never learned the truth. But Obi-Wan coming here alone was unexpected. Het didn't want to do this, but what choice did he have? The Tuskens were his family, so he ended the communication with Palpatine, saying it will be done. And out in the camp, Obi-Wan Kenobi had peacefully approached a group of Tuskens with 2 watermelons that he'd gathered as a peace offering. Kenobi laid the melons out and began talking with the Tusken group as well as he could, using symbols to learn why they were holding Shmi as a hostage. One of the Tuskens drew a lightsaber, and another drew fire over their camp. It seemed to Kenobi like they didn't actually want to be torturing Shmi, almost as if they had no choice. And a moment later, an orange lightsaber ignited in front of Obi-Wan and the Tuskens. Now, Obi-Wan understood. The Sith hired someone to torture Shmi. All of this was a web designed to make Anakin suffer. The Tusken Jedi actually spoke basic, telling Kenobi that he's sorry for what has to be done. Obi-Wan tried telling the Tusken that he does not have to do this. It's not too late to turn back, but Sharad Het told Obi-Wan he doesn't understand. Either Kenobi dies, or the Tuskens die. Obi-Wan understood that this man was once a Jedi, not a Jedi he'd ever met, but a Jedi nonetheless, and perhaps he could be brought back to the light. And Het leapt at Obi-Wan. The orange and blue sabers would hiss violently as the 2 of them pressed their blades together, faces just inches apart. Obi-Wan knew he had to find out the truth about all of this, and he disengaged with a quick sidestep, circling Het with footwork trained over decades, but Het came faster. His style was raw, blending Jedi forms with the brutal, erratic strikes of Tusken combat. He lunged with a stabbing thrust aimed at Obi-Wan's chest, then transitioned into a ferocious overhead slam. Obi-Wan barely rolled away in time, the ground scorched where the orange blade hit. Seizing the moment, Obi-Wan delivered a sharp elbow to Het's ribs, staggering the Tusken Jedi back a step, but Het recovered quickly, unleashing a flurry of slashes in a wider arc, driving Kenobi backwards. As they fought, the Tuskens in this camp gathered in a circle around the 2 fighters, and Obi-Wan was pushed towards the edge of the circle. The raiders roared in approval. Het leapt into the air again, and Obi-Wan raised his blade to block. He pushed back, twirling his own saber in a tight swing to create some breathing room. He pivoted to Het's blind side, delivering a shallow slash across the Tusken's shoulder, sending sparks and a cry of pain into the air. Het stopped playing fair, and he kicked sand into the air right into Obi-Wan's eyes. The Jedi Master stumbled to the ground, clawing at his eyes, using the Force to roll away from a lethal swing for his neck. Blinded for the moment, Obi-Wan gave himself over to the Force, reacting on instinct, as Het swung again and again, missing Kenobi every time. Obi-Wan waited for the perfect moment, spinning under a strike, then slashing upward with a perfect swing, disarming the Tusken Jedi with a clean hit to the lightsaber hilt. The orange saber clattered to the sand. Obi-Wan pushed him to the ground and stood over him. Het was staring up in defiance and defeat. But instead of finishing the duel, Obi-Wan deactivated his blade. The Tusken crowd murmured in disbelief, and Obi-Wan extended a merciful hand. Sharad Het took Obi-Wan's hand, and Obi-Wan asked for his trust once more as his vision began to clear. He told Het to tell him who hired him to capture Shmi. He promised that the Jedi will protect his Tusken family more than the Sith ever could. So, Het would tell the Tuskens to cook Obi-Wan and Shmi a real, genuine meal, and get Shmi enough water and healing herbs to bring her back to health. Het would sit Obi-Wan down and begin unraveling the truth. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Anakin Skywalker was on Kamino with Padme Amidala. He was still under assignment to protect her, and when Padme heard of Kamino, she insisted they go together. So today the 2 of them would learn that the Republic already had an army built for them. It was rather unbelievable, but apparently, Jedi Master Sifo Dyas put the order in. Padme felt heartbroken. All of her effort to shut down the creation of an army for the Republic was worthless. An army was already created, and it would only be a matter of time until war breaks out across the galaxy. But as they walked through the facility, Anakin sensed something, a familiar presence. He turned to ignite his lightsaber just in time, as 2 blaster shots nearly killed Padme. The bounty hunter was here. Anakin had Padme hide behind a wall as he ran at Jango Fett. Anakin ran forward, saber ignited, deflecting each bolt. Jango shifted to cover, rolling into an opening between the walls, using every inch of the space as he continued to fire. Anakin pressed forward, slashing clean through a control panel, darkening the lights, forcing Jango to rely on his helmet's sensors, while Anakin could rely on the Force. Trying to create distance, Jango fired a grapple hook into the ceiling, yanking himself up, clinging to the metallic beams as he swung to kick Anakin in the chest. But Anakin hurled his lightsaber upward in a spinning toss. It didn't strike Jango directly, but it sliced the cables in the ceiling, sending him crashing down. Jango landed hard, rolling with the fall, launching a mini dart from his gauntlet. It grazed Anakin's arm, but Anakin didn't flinch. He reached out with the Force, yanking the blasters from Jango's hands, hurling them down the hall. Jango retaliated with a knee launcher, a small concussive bomb, detonating at Anakin's feet, sending him flying backwards into a hard wall. And as Jango lunged with the blade in his wrist, Anakin caught his arm mid-strike, the two of them slamming into the corridor wall with brutal force. They fought each other in the tight hallway, Jango's assassin speed against Anakin's power as a Jedi. A headbutt from Jango sent Anakin stumbling for a moment, and the bounty hunter took the chance to deliver a series of fast punches. But Anakin endured the hits, letting the rage build, catching Jango's final punch, twisting his arm violently, dislocating it. Jango roared in pain. Anakin lifted him with the Force, slamming him into the wall, then into the floor. And before Jango could recover, Anakin used the Force to send a sharp knock into Jango's chest. The bounty hunter collapsed. Anakin stood over him, picking him up to be brought back to Coruscant for interrogation. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Chancellor Palpatine was speaking with Sharad Het on Tatooine, as Het reported that Kenobi was injured, but he has escaped into the Tatooine caves. But he's figured out that the Sith hired the Tuskens to torture Shmi. Het reported that Kenobi took Shmi with him, and they cannot find him. He has the truth. This angered Palpatine. He had a war to start, but Kenobi suddenly has become the most important person that could disrupt his plans. If he tells Anakin that the Sith were behind his mother's capture, Anakin suddenly becomes a huge threat to the Sith, rather than an eventual ally. So Palpatine dispatched Dooku to Tatooine to kill Kenobi. Of course, Sharad Het was lying. He and Kenobi came up with a plan to lure Dooku here, while the Jedi Council on Coruscant would learn the truth about Palpatine. Obi Wan sent a message to the Council, saying he will explain later why he is on Tatooine, but for now, they almost know the truth. Palpatine is working directly with the Sith. He may himself be a Sith Lord, and this lined up perfectly with the reports from Anakin, who just got back from Kamino. The bounty hunter hired to kill Padme had his mind probed by the Jedi, as he revealed he was hired by Dooku, and Anakin said that Palpatine was the one who directed him to Kamino. The army created for the Republic was being overseen by the Sith. Of course, the Jedi didn't truly know that Dooku was a Sith, but at this point the pieces were falling into place. So, a Jedi strike team would be organized to go and confront Palpatine. And on Tatooine, Dooku would eventually land at the Tusken camp, telling them to show him where Kenobi has gone. So, Het and the Tuskens brought Dooku to the cave, where they think Kenobi has gone, and as Dooku entered the dark cave, a presence emerged from deep within. Kenobi stepped forward from behind a stone wall, lightsaber already ignited. Within moments, Het's orange blade would hiss to life behind Dooku, and Dooku understood he's walked right into a trap. The two Jedi lunged together. Dooku's red blade met theirs with powerful strikes. The duel lit the cave in flashes of red, blue, and orange. Dooku twisted through the narrow spaces, turning Het's wide swings aside, redirecting Obi Wan's swings. Sparks sprayed off the walls as Het moved low and quick, fighting with brutal, relentless swings, while Obi Wan remained calm, weaving in and out with a fluid defense. Outside the cave, the Tuskens began their own moves, setting off sonic charges that echoed through the rock. A deep rumble began to pulse beneath the ground. Deep in the cave system, something dangerous stirred. Inside, Dooku knocked Het hard against the wall with a force push, turning his full fury on Kenobi. He battered the Jedi's defenses with a blast of lightning that sent Kenobi to the ground. Dooku moved forward, spraying Kenobi with lightning, blade raised for a killing strike, until the ground shook again. Obi-Wan knew it was time. He reached out with the Force, aimed at the stone ceiling above. Rocks and dust began to fall. Dooku stepped back, momentarily confused, and then the cave around him began to collapse. Obi-Wan scrambled to his feet, darting to the exit. Het joined him, clutching a bruised side, and the two bolted as stone rained down behind them. Dooku was stuck inside, and from within the cave's depths came the roar of the Krayt Dragon. Dooku had nowhere to go, as the blast of heat and acid flooded the chamber. The creature would surge forward, and Dooku was gone. Outside, the cave mouth had caved in completely, buried in sand and rubble. Kenobi and Het stood side by side, and Het thanked Kenobi for bringing him back to the light. Obi-Wan promised that the Jedi will keep Tatooine in their minds, and he would bring Shmi back to the Lars family. Obi-Wan would share a wonderful meal with them, telling the recovering Shmi so many stories about Anakin, and eventually, Anakin himself would come here. Anakin would tell Obi-Wan what happened on Coruscant. Yoda, Windu, Plo, Mundi, Kolar, Tin, and Fisto went to arrest Palpatine. Kolar and Tin died in the duel, but ultimately, the Jedi did what they had to do, and the others were able to kill Sidious, who was revealed to be the Sith Master behind the war after all. Now, Padme was leading the charge against war in the galaxy, and the Clone Wars dissolved before they could truly begin. Padme's emergency mediation accords created a neutral council to oversee diplomatic talks. With the Sith plot exposed, the Republic was eager to restore its legitimacy. The Separatist worlds were allowed to secede peacefully under the new Free Systems Act. Worlds like Raxus, Onderon, Sullust would submit articles of separation and reopen diplomatic ties with Republic planets. Trade routes resumed under joint patrols, and independent mediators ensured a smooth transition of power. It was slow and not without great tension, but it replaced war with real diplomacy. The Clone Army would be offered citizenship, a stipend, and the choice to join service as peacekeepers for the Republic or start a civilian life. There were only 200,000 of them, which was a lot, but not too many to not know what to do with them. Corporate leaders in the CIS faced public trials and strict reform. The banking clan lost control of its private armies, the Trade Federation was broken apart, and droid factories were repurposed or dismantled. Though many escaped punishment, their power was gone for good. The Jedi Order withdrew from Coruscant, splitting into two halves, one on Ossus and Republic space, and another on Jedha. No longer bound to the Senate, Jedi were roaming freely as neutral peacekeepers, settling disputes and offering aid for both governments. Anakin Skywalker would forever be grateful to Obi-Wan for saving his mother and having the patience to figure out the truth about everything. The two of them continued their training together. Anakin would visit his mother often with Obi-Wan by his side, and as Padme Amidala rose to chancellorship, Anakin and Obi-Wan would eventually rise to become masters of a Jedi Council that was better for the whole galaxy. One day, as a pod race was going on Tatooine, there would be two attendees here, secretly hanging out together. The Jumbotron would flash over to Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. The galaxy would learn of their secret relationship, and everything would be settled as the Chancellor and the Jedi Council Master would work together. And folks, that is our story for today. Hope you enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed it. It was very explorative. That's not a word. I don't know. I went out on a few limbs here. There is the Tusken Jedi, but in canon, this Tusken Jedi doesn't actually do that. I made that up. But I thought it was fun. There is the Tusken Jedi, and I don't know. Maybe, it makes sense that Sidious would be behind the whole Tusken thing, because, why are they keeping Shmi alive, if not hired? And yeah, I decided to, instead of it having, Dooku on Tatooine, or Sidious on Tatooine, I don't know, introduce a whole new character, Tusken Jedi, who is canon, that is a canon Jedi. He just didn't do that. He did, eventually, or he did during the Clone Wars, live on Tatooine, so... At least, I think. Anyways, that was a fun twist to go on. I really enjoyed it a lot, so I hope you did as well. Bending canon, but it's my story, it's my what if. So, have fun, let's deal with it, let's have a great time. And then the Jumbotron, if you know, you know. Appreciate you guys. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what you want to see next. And I'll see you in the next video.